Hi, Jen. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm excited to be with you and to share some poems and conversation. I'm going to start with some poems from Wonders of the Invisible World, my book that came out in October with 42 Mile Press, thanks to David Dodd-Lee, an editor extraordinaire. And you should know his work too, everybody. It's very rich and it's very varied, and he's a visual artist too, in a number of genres, collage, painting. Okay, so I'm going to start with a title poem, which is the last poem in the book, and it's pretty long. And I might not read every section, but I'll see how it feels. Wonders of the Invisible World. 1. Doesn't everybody get a strange life? Don't we get to walk around inside ourselves all day long and sleep there through the whole night? Don't we have permanent access to the magnum and the minimum opus, the rising up and the sinking down? Aren't we granted the right to refrain from occupying more than one place at a time, from sharing the portable spaces we inhabit, from being in the least interchangeable? Doesn't it take all of our courage to be this but not that, no matter how incremental the distinctions in this world, where even the smallest entity is epic to itself, and objects go precisely to their own edges and then stop, or at least hesitate? Don't we all get the ocean and the idea of ocean, diffusion, resistance, and support, along with those in-your-face heavens of exponential blue, cumuli performing their high wire act as the wind releases its flayed and flaming exhalations? And consecutive failures, each more luminous than the last. Don't we get to drink deeply of the sun and grief and night and other voluminous bodies? And there's all this topiary profusion. And there are things that are discrete, things that overlap, things that can be left to themselves, and things requiring intermittent maintenance and repair. There are things which, once released from their containers, will never fit back in. There are things we've torn apart with our bare hands. A few of them are even visible. Here, where it's been arranged for us to be asynchronously lonely while we tingle with the temporal heebie-jeebies as though preparing to lift off with wings sutured together from the mangled remains of defective feathers. Up comes a small wind and the temperature begins to drop. Oh, bright wound of existence, so feral and ferociously shy. First wonder of the unseen world, are you God or just some kind of emissary? How chagrined we find ourselves that we couldn't have made you up. Nor water, whose work is to taste like nothing, nor air, whose work is to look like nothing, nor fire, whose work is to billow in the bloodstream, impersonating nothing, even as it burns. So that's the first section of a poem of many pages. And as you can see in this book, I'm kind of wrestling with some kind of philosophical, ontological, existential wonderings in a playful, slightly anguished, slightly playful, mostly curious way. And here's a kind of related poem. This is the first poem in the book, The New Loneliness. Remember how it was before thought balloons? A supercontinent of chaotic cognitive matter floating just above our heads, one huge lumpish murk. Remember the era before alphabets were sorted, hieroglyphics and cuneiform all jumbled together, characters resembling machine parts tangled with runes like forked and flaming branches? Remember life before quotation marks, when anything could be attributed to anyone, so there was never a distinction between generosity and return? The world is tidier these days. There's no limit to what we may accomplish, now that each of us is equipped to take things personally. So I guess I do spend a lot of time writing and thinking about self and other, and why are we ourselves and not somebody else, which I'll talk about later. What is the how what separates us also connects us, but it always feels a little bit strange. This is a prose poem that was inspired when I thought about how I often have music in my head. And what if that were audible to everyone and everybody else's music was audible to me? Weathers. Where I come from, everyone's helpless against the aerial onslaught of other people's mental music, those melodic fragments that run on repeat loops through the brain. So before we venture out on a picnic, we check the index for our chosen location. And if there hasn't been enough wind to waft away harmonic residue, we seek an alternate spot. Before we close on a house, we scrutinize the notarized list of songs and musical passages that have accumulated there. Failure to disclose even one renders a contract void. Dating profiles feature each person's top 10, but there's no guarantee a couple's internal playlists won't evolve in opposite directions. Post-breakup, both partners still hum their ex's tunes since music is sexually transmitted, no matter how much protection lovers afflict themselves with. A few people claim they can actually see the songs, that each possesses its own color configuration, some pale and translucent, others pulsing in primary hues. These individuals maneuver vigilantly through the streets, circumnavigating the currents, but the rest of us find ourselves continually ambushed by overlapping washes, as though we're slipping between radio stations every few seconds. It's certainly quieter in your country where these auditory echoes remain trapped inside the individual mind. Your atmosphere seems stale, almost dimensionless, compared to that of my homeland, but your citizens are more volatile, reactive, prone to giving and taking offense, to aggression, litigation, every kind of strife. Such activities must serve as some kind of compensation for your predicament. With all that vacant space between you, you'll do anything to fill the air. And I think I'll read one more. It's also a prose poem from one of my former books, it's still a book, Clumsy, and that was with New Issues. Reprieve. The same day the same day the doctor confirmed my mother's pregnancy, he also informed her that she was carrying not one but two children, twins, one a human female, the other a pearl. They are chemically incompatible, he said. You must choose in favor of one who will then absorb the other, or you will surely lose them both. Cruel dilemma for a woman who not only possessed a strong maternal instinct, but loved the beautiful and the mysterious as well. For the proverbial 3 days and 3 nights, she pondered, unable to make up her mind. Finally, however, as if to register my own opinion, I gave a feeble kick, a gossamer flutter, and that decided her. So dutifully, though with considerable sorrow, she began an intense course of the balancing medicine the doctor gave her. And my sister, the pearl, gradually weakened, finally dissolving into me. Had she been the one with fishy little arms and legs, in other words, had she been human and I a pearl, no doubt she'd have done the same thing, and I wouldn't have begrudged her this feeble gesture toward self-preservation. So I'm certain she experienced no rancor as she felt herself begin to come apart. Surely there are many aspects of my nature that can be explained only by her presence in my bloodstream. For instance, my acute sensitivity to sunlight. Any true pearl would sell the very soul she doesn't have for 5 minutes of shade. There's nothing a pearl detests more than daylight. In fact, she goes into a kind of hysterical coma in sunshine, recovering from her swoon only in the safety of her long, black velvet-lined box. I myself get migraines from glare, burn easily, and would, if permitted, permanently hibernate indoors. That's why all year round, I wear enormous black sunglasses despite the ridicule of passers-by. Also, like a pearl, I am mostly a loner, and I tend to surround myself with loners, just as each pearl, pierced through by the same golden chain, basks in the luminescence of the others, even as she secretly believes she's the only one suspended there, and whines, "I'm so lonely." As for the differences between my sister and me, were you surprised when I mentioned that a pearl has no soul? It's true, you can test this for yourself. Candle her like an egg, and all you'll find is a cool cloudiness. Send X-rays through her with the most state-of-the-art layogram, and all you'll see is the telltale hexagonal pattern of dots designating the crystalline structure. Slice her in half, and all you'll discover is layer upon layer of aragonite, no true core at the center, only the original parasite or grain of sand. Not a soul, but an anomaly, an intrusion. Though come to think of it, a human soul does feel to its bearer, that is, to me, not unlike an irritation. So maybe in this aspect too, we are more alike than different. Very probably then I'm a pearl on the inside and a human on the outside, in which case my mother is not, as she has assumed all these years, guilty of my sister's death. For in choosing me, she saved both of us, and thus she can unshackle herself from the underwater rock where she has been doing penance all these years, her chin barely above the surface. Thank you.